Welcome to my reading wrap up for June and July. Within these last 2 months, we read a total of 11 books, which is one more than my last reading wrap up, which I guess you could say is good, but most of those books were in June. In July, I only read 4 books. I feel like I've been in a little bit of a reading slump, but my most recent book, which I will talk about at the end of this video, I think is getting me out of it. Before we get started, if you guys end up liking this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you are a book bestie. I started off June by finishing the book A Man Called Ove. I think that's how you say it. I'm not entirely sure. When I first finished it, I gave it 5 stars. And I wrote in my review that it might be my favorite book of the year. So I will say now, the more time that's gone since I read that, I'm not like thinking about it very much, but I do think it's such a good book. Essentially, it is about this man named Ove, and he is a much older man. He's kind of like going through a rough time in his life. I don't want to spoil it, but I will say that you should probably check trigger warnings on this book because it's very sad in a very specific way. I feel like it's sometimes hard for me to give book reviews because I'm so anti-spoiler, but I would recommend this to anybody, literally most people. I would recommend this book to, especially if you like sad books. You love like super heartwarming stories, because I feel like it's both of those things. It follows Ove's life from when he's old, and then you go back into the past and you're kind of reading through his story leading up to where he is now. It's really at the root of it a story about community and how important other people are in our lives for fulfillment and happiness and like something to contribute to. It's so sweet. It's such a good book. I then read this short story, White Nights by Dostoevsky, and it is a story of unrequited love. We are following our main character, who is a very lonely man. He's kind of the person who's like not able to talk to people. He's so shy. He's never really been able to get up the courage to talk to a girl. He then meets this girl, and each night they hang out for the next however many nights, and it's very short book. It's like anywhere between 80 and 100 pages, depending on the edition that you read. And I love this one because the characters are super dramatic, and I think that's really funny. Funny story though, I think I talked about this in another video. When I started reading this, my cover just says White Nights, and I went directly into the book thinking that I was reading White Nights, but this edition is actually 3 different stories. So I was reading a completely different book, but then I did go to the correct one. This was my first Dostoevsky book, but I think it's true of his other books, but the dialogue is just very dramatic, a lot of exclamation marks, a lot of very just matter-of-fact way of talking, like, oh, this is true because I feel it. This book was fun, but it is a little sad. But I would specifically recommend this if you are wanting to get into classics, but you don't want to commit to a whole massive book. I rated it 4.5 stars. For a short story, that's pretty good. The next book that I read, I actually listened to, and that was Tom Lake. And I personally didn't love this book. I assumed that I would because I do love stories about acting. This book is about a main character who is telling her daughters, who are full-grown adult daughters, like early 20s, I think, the story of how she had met this famous actor before he was famous. And this takes place during COVID, so that's like an interesting little part of it. I didn't really love that because, like, I don't know. But the reason that they're all together and they're telling each other these stories is because it's during COVID and they're kind of stuck together. I think they also have like a cherry farm or something. I don't even remember. I had such a hard time getting through this book that I don't even really want to remember it. I gave this one 2 stars because I had to force myself to finish it, and honestly I probably should have just DNF'd it because I didn't even feel like it had a very satisfying ending. I recommend it to you, specifically the audiobook, if you like Meryl Streep because she narrates it, and if you like stories that are really boring. Alone with You in the Ether I read on my Kindle. It was my first Olivia Blake book, and I was really excited about it because I've heard her writing is excellent, and I will say her writing is excellent. But when I finished it, I basically wrote in my initial review, I don't know what I just read, and I don't know if that's the point. It felt like a fever dream. There's a lot of adult content in this book, and I think that Definitely it would not be recommended for younger audiences. It is all told kind of more in a poetic way. This book had a lot of really good lines. I gave this one 3 stars. It's about our main character who is, gosh, I'm like forgetting everything that happened in this book. Okay, our main character is an artist. She also has bipolar, I believe, and male main character who is a professor of math. He's like obsessed with trying to figure out how time travel works, and the whole thing is kind of around that. Honestly, I don't know, but I do recommend this if you like stories that are a little bit different, like this literary fiction type of story, and you're interested in this study between mathematics and art and time travel and people falling in love but kind of being destructive to each other. That's the way that I would recommend it. Just One Taste is a romance book that's fairly short. You see how short that is? It is about our main character whose dad has recently died and left her his Italian restaurant, but she holds a lot of resentment towards him because he chose the restaurant over family a lot. But now that he's died, she has to finish his cookbook that he was almost done with. But she goes on a trip to Italy with one of the chefs at his restaurant. And because it's a romance, you can probably assume what kind of goes from there. This one was not very memorable when I'm thinking about it. The part of it that was super memorable is the way that they described the food, the landscape, the atmosphere of Italy, I think was very beautiful. But unfortunately, the characters themselves kind of fell flat for me. It also was a bit cheesy, so keep that in mind if you're going to pick up this book. But one of the reasons I picked it up was, well, first off, the cover I think was really cute, and it also has a little quote from Emily Henry herself. So I was very excited, but I wouldn't necessarily say that I wouldn't pick up more from this author. It's just maybe I wasn't in the perfect mood to read this because it is one of those more cheesy romances. But I didn't hate it, and I ended up giving it 3.75 stars. And I would recommend it to you if you like cheesy romances and if you are obsessed with Italy, because I think that that was done quite well. Also did have a pretty good ending. The Reappearance of Rachel Price is a book that I was not expecting to like as much as I did, because I feel like Holly Jackson gets a lot of hype for A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, and I also read her book 5 Survive last year. This one, I finished the book being like, wow, that was so good. I loved it so much, and I was like literally obsessed. But as I was talking through it with my husband and telling him how the plot went and telling him everything that happened, I was like, now wait a second. I feel like that the motive of the villain didn't make sense. Everything else in the plot worked so perfectly together. I could not put this book down. I was having the time of my life reading this book. So I would actually highly recommend it, especially if you like the behind the scenes of filmmaking, because it kind of shows a lot of that in this book, because you're following this story of this main character whose mom has gone away. She disappeared at some point. In the past, when she was like 2 years old, when our main character was 2 years old, Belle, our main character, is kind of the center of this documentary that they're making about her mom's disappearance. And then obviously Rachel Price reappears, and it's honestly really good. And I would also recommend this if you're in a reading slump. Just like binge this thing. It's so good. Keep in mind that like if you feel like confused by the motive, you're not alone. I gave this one 3.5 stars after realizing that I wasn't convinced by the motive. Anatomy, a Love Story. This book sat on my shelf for a while, and I was not expecting to love it so much, or I would have picked it up sooner. This is a story about our main character in the 1800s, and she wants to be a surgeon, but she's a woman, so clearly that's a no-no. But she decides to try anyway, and she, without giving any spoilers, it doesn't go great because, you know, bad things happen in books. You know, bad things have to happen to main characters. But she teams up with a resurrection man. She's able to practice that way, but there's a lot more sinister things going on than what is on the surface. This book was so good, and I gave it 4 stars. I would recommend this to you if you are wanting to get a little bit more into that gothic type of writing, but you don't want to commit to a massive book. This one's pretty short, easy to read, and it's a little creepy. And also, if you're wanting a book that is really perfect for like the fall time, specifically maybe October is when I would read this. I kind of wish that I had waited until then because I think it would have been like that much better, but yeah, I really enjoyed this one. I listened to Malibu Rising, and again, it was another one that I listened to that I just didn't connect with. I ended up giving it 3.25 stars. It wasn't horrible, but I feel like Taylor Jenkins Reid's other books, in my opinion, are a lot better. This one follows a family, specifically the main character, Nina. She's the oldest daughter of this family, and it's kind of following their family's whole story. It starts with Nina and it goes to the past with her mom and her dad, and it's a lot about broken relationships and family patterns. It's about love, but there's a lot of also like affairs going on and just bad relationship dynamics, and I didn't super love that, but I would recommend this if you really want a story that's set on Malibu, you like family dynamics throughout a story, and possibly also if you've read the other books in this like universe. It's like in the Hollywood series, the main characters are like all rich and famous, and it also references a lot of characters from the other books, so I would recommend it for that reason. But honestly, I probably wouldn't, I didn't super love it. I don't even know why I gave it that high of a rating. And then I read The Conditions of Will by Jessa Hastings. If you guys have seen my past videos, specifically my short form content, which if you don't follow me on TikTok yet, you probably should. I do like individual reviews of every single book that I read on TikTok. I did a review of Magnolia Parks because I read that book. And not to spoil it or anything, but I rated it very poorly, very low. I ended up really hating the toxicity, but I decided to pick up The Conditions of Will because I loved the writing of Magnolia Parks, just not the story. And I can safely say I loved The Conditions of Will a lot more than I loved Magnolia Parks, which is making me think I might just need to finish the Magnolia Parks series, like give it more of a chance. I don't know. I gave The Conditions of Will 4 stars. I think it's really hard to recommend though, because I don't know who exactly I would recommend it to. It's a story about our main character, Georgia, who has been kind of excommunicated from her family, and then her dad dies and she comes back to America because she had moved to the UK. She comes back to America for like the reading of his will, his funeral, all of that. And the story is so much about relationship dynamics as well, and just Jessa Hastings' writing is quite profound in certain ways. It's really a narration on family and how it should be important and how you should support and love your family no matter what choices they make. I really, really did enjoy it, but honestly, I don't know who I'd recommend it to. I think you need to do your own research to see if this is a book that you would enjoy or not. If it was one thing, it was beautifully written. Picking Daisies on Sundays, it got me with its cover. I bought this book purely based on the cover. I knew nothing about what was in the book, and I kind of have regrets. I didn't like this book, which I think is like a little bit controversial. I feel like most people who read this book really love it, especially they love the main character Levi, but personally I thought he was too unrealistic. He felt like just the perfect guy with pretty much no flaws besides the fact that he like kissed another girl when they weren't even dating. So I did give this one 2 stars. I really wish I had DNF'd it. I think this is the book that put me in a reading slump. I do appreciate that it had no spice. It was pretty cutesy. High school best friends to lovers. They reunite after they've been apart for years. It kind of reads pretty young, even though our characters are in their 20s. I do think that is because they knew each other in high school and they kind of revert to their high school selves. But I don't have a lot of good things to say about this book. I honestly wouldn't recommend it unless you're just really looking for a cutesy romance. Besides that, I wouldn't personally. One of the stars is because this is self-published and I'm just like very impressed by that. I think that the author did a great job. She designed the cover herself, everything like that. There is also a part of the story that is cute when it all comes together at the end. And then obviously my other star is just because the cover. I love the cover. It's so cute. But yeah. And then because I was in such a bad reading slump, I decided to pick up a very, very short book, The Little Prince. And this book was really cute. I do think that it would be an adorable book to do for a book club. I know that this is like a classic and lots of people have already read this, but this was my first time reading this. It's about our main character who I think is like, whatever he's like traveling in breaks down, and this little prince shows up who kind of has lived on all these different planets. And he tells the story of each of these different people that he met on these different planets. It's really a commentary on the way that we as adults do things and how it doesn't make sense. Like a lot of things that we decide to do don't make a lot of sense, and we should have more childlike wonder and joy and just like being present and doing things that are enjoyable and like helpful to the world instead of just all these other crazy things. I think it's really cute. I would recommend it. I would definitely like to read it again because I think because I was in such a bad reading slump, I was just like, I need to get through a book. Like I need to read something, and I don't think I absorbed it as much as I could have, so I would love to read this one again, but I did borrow it from someone, so I'm gonna have to return this copy. But yeah, super sweet, super cute. I gave it 4 stars and I would recommend it to literally everyone. Okay, I'm recording this on August 1st and I finished this book last night, very, very late. Catching Fire. Yes, I am finally doing my Hunger Games reading vlog where I'm reading the books for the first time. I did not expect the things that happened in this book. I'm going to say nothing about it except for I would definitely recommend it, and I gave it 5 stars. I don't think anybody needs to be recommending the Hunger Games series because it's literally so well loved that everybody knows about it, but I was surprised by everything that happened in this book because I didn't know the plot. I think when I was a kid and the books were coming out or the movies were coming out, one or the other, my mom did tell me like what happened in this, but I completely forgot it. So I was completely shocked by the way that this went. I was shocked by the midpoint, like the big, okay, this is what's happening for the rest of the book. And then I was super shocked by the very ending, and I cannot wait to finish. And I am begging you guys not to spoil anything for me. Anyway, it makes sense for a continuation of a series to get worse, like things to get worse for our characters, but I didn't realize how much worse it was gonna get. And then I read this, and that's all I'm gonna say. So that was the 11 books I read in June and July. I hope you guys enjoyed this and that any of my recommendations, you were able to find something that you could take for yourself. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.